Ladies and gentlemen, Digital Olympus has reached its final presenter for the day. Mr. Ronnel Smith, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Sounds great. Yeah.
So
Video's
I'm going
good.
to share my screen now, right?
All right. Yeah, go for it. Uh, Ronnel, he is going to be presenting on how selecting the right keywords helps your brand attract the best audience. Uh, Valuable message that we can all put into practice. So screen share looks good, Ronnel. Take it away.
Okay. This talk is born of basically two things. One of the things I hear a lot when I travel is we're all overwhelmed with tools and all these platforms and information, and people are looking for a way to simplify what it is they need to be producing, designing, creating, and sharing. And the other is a story that comes from experience. A couple of years ago, I had a really, really sophisticated client that was really focused around very specific keywords, a very successful brand, small brand, and I was the lead strategist for him. And what I couldn't get him to see was that his brand was not focused on intent, and what that was allowing people to do. It made AdWords very, very, very expensive for him because he was competing against some very, very much bigger brands with much more powerful domains. And so what I had to get him to see was by focusing so narrowly on very specific keywords, he was actually hurting his business, not helping it. And so what I finally shared with him was getting beyond the exact match, quote unquote, keywords, keyword stuffing, and focus on building out content that allowed him to go from building content to one-to-one connection to audience to community was what ultimately was going to help him be successful. And so that's what I want to talk about today. So now we're good. Okay. So this is a tool I use. Again, it's Keyword Explorer. I've been playing around with it for a while. There's a bunch of things out there that people use. But basically what I'm trying to do is get a snapshot of let's just say, for example, I want to share information around content marketing for bloggers. It's just something I threw in there. And it's not that important, this information up there, unless you've used this tool, the difficulty, the opportunity, potential, and all that. What I'm basically looking for is the keyword suggestions here. I'm looking at this SERPs analysis. Again, this is the first thing that pops up, not very sophisticated. But look right here, you're seeing who ranks very high for this, for the topic. You also see some ideas around content marketing for bloggers. You see there's not a whole lot of data there, so it pretty well highlights this. Maybe it won't be that competitive, but it also may not be that worthwhile. But let's look here. Let's look at the blog. This Content Marketing Institute has a lot of content around it, obviously. But if I'm just getting started, I won't necessarily know that. So that maybe should tell us that if we're going to produce content around this topic, maybe we should visit this blog. And if you do a SERPs analysis, look who ranks highest. Content Marketing Institute. So to me, that says I should be active on this blog if I'm going to produce content around this topic. And that can better inform me strategically going forward. One of the things I think we do is we box ourselves in early on by saying, here's the content we should be producing, we should be producing, without knowing our audience very well. And I see that very, very prevalently as a content strategist working with brands small and large. And so I think we should allow the audience, which can lead to community, to inform us, but that first means we have to get beyond producing content, and I think that's very, very instructive. Again, if you do a simple Google search, content marketing for bloggers, look who shows up, Content Marketing Institute. Again, this should continue to tell us that we should be looking at this blog, looking at platforms like this to find those people, to find those topics, to find those influencers who can help us move the needle. And beyond that, looking at topics related to it. Now, Rand did Maz did a webinar recently on keyword strategy, and he talked about this, how doing a search that highlights intent, which is much better for looking for people who may not be in the quote-unquote funnel at the point at which we're typically producing content, but looking for content ideas around our main content. So if I'm producing content marketing for bloggers, maybe it's blog ideas or blog strategy or blog content ideas. So thinking beyond just the content. And I think it goes to thinking about content that can help us form a connection, that can help us create an audience that can help us move to community. I ultimately think that's where we have to go, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So here's just a few tactics that I've seen work effectively, and I think we can all use it to be more successful with our content marketing efforts. One is, to me, the passion must flow from within, and what that means is your core group has to be very passionate about a topic, because once you're moving from content to community, the resident passion that your small group has, I think of it is ultimately what will sustain you. And I think of it when Steve Jobs left Apple for the first time, or when he was ousted from Apple for the first time, and he formed Next to be this pioneering computer company. It was that passionate group of people that ultimately led to what we see today. It was a belief in whatever we create, it has to be the best. And what I see a lot of times is when people just begin producing content without a larger goal in mind of producing this loyal audience that ultimately becomes a community, they get stuck on just producing content. And I think it's they never get their sea legs. It's what you practice ultimately you become better at. And I think it begins with passion. To me, that's something that can't be overstated, and it's something I've been saying for years. That's one of the biggest impediments to brand being successful, is they don't have a passionate core team. The other is thinking smaller. This is that whole 0 to 1 philosophy. I know Peter Thiel was in the news right now. Still one of the best books I've ever read. But he talked about the perfect target market is a small group. And that small group is basically that when you go from, okay, here's the keywords that send me to this audience, which is a core group of people who are consuming your content typically. What I learned from them ultimately helps me overserve that audience, and a small percentage of that audience will ultimately become part of my community. So don't think about having this broad keyword set that brings in all these people. Think about having a very narrow keyword set at first that you can branch out as you learn more from your audience. And that's where I think the intent comes in. But often we don't know enough early on to focus so much on producing a broad audience or a broader community. I ultimately think we end up underserving those people as opposed to overserving them. This is really big for me. I know a lot of people are talking about building an audience, and to me, to a lot of people, building an audience is the logical next step from a keyword strategy, because ultimately you want to build a larger base of people. And I think that's a mistake if you think about just stopping there. Recently, Buffer came out and talked about how their traffic from search dropped off. And I have no inside information, but when you look at the information they were sharing, it's always been very, very strong. But it was always on very, I hate to say generic topics, but topics that made it easy for people to produce content around it. I don't think, and this is just my personal observation, focused enough on building a core community. I think they stopped at focusing on building an audience. And that was people who love the information. And I think now they're focusing on people who love Buffer and who enjoy that information. What that does, and you've seen them make a shift recently where now it's about productivity tips and not just social media information. Once they focus on that core group and not just the people who are consuming their content, if you focusing on a core group, you can better discern their needs because they'll tell you exactly what they want. When you look at the tens and hundreds of thousands of people who come to your website every month, those people very likely won't buy anything from you. And they can cause your eyes to go astray, so to speak. They can have you focusing on them when you should be focused on that smaller core group of people. And I think that's what Buffer is doing now. Again, I have no inside information, but I think the changes they've made allow me to believe that they're focusing more on that community and not just an audience, producing content for them as well. Also, something we have to remember is of the people who will share your content, who will interact with your content, very few people will share it. I mean, and next to no one will link to. I mean, I shared a graphic recently at a presentation I did that 75% of content out there gets no links. And I think I said something like 99% of it is crap. But very, very few people who consume your content will do anything beyond that. And so when we look at these vanity metrics like time on site and people commenting, I think that can be very, very misleading. We have to focus on what is ultimately our long-term goal and look to optimize that. That's typically people who are following us not just on our website but going elsewhere as well to follow us and be a larger part of our community. And this is a graphic that Buffer showed. I think this is really the key. Instead of us thinking of content as being heroic, I think content should be simply a help, specifically at first. If we can simply think of, okay, what is the goal for content? It's not to drive conversions, certainly not initially, but however it can help. But if we can just say, okay, I'm going to be here and I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you do better what you already endeavor to do. It's likely not jumping over the moon. And as I often like to say, it's not particle physics, the job that we need content to do. But we overcomplicate it by putting all these stipulations on it, assigning all these metrics to it, when just first and foremost, we need to get it in front of people, have them consume it, and allow them to inform us, or just allow the interaction to inform us. Another thing I think about all the time is getting back to the goals. The goal of content marketing is not content, and that's something that's led us astray. Is we've become to think of content marketing as the goal, and it's not the goal. And to me, this quote very well sums it up. You know, the goal isn't a quarter-inch bit. The goal is a quarter-inch hole. And you know, it's like going into Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever home improvement store and to buy a hammer. You don't need a hammer. You need the solution. I think that's how we have to start thinking of content. The other is being human. I've talked about this guy before. The Will It Blend campaign really helped me because it answered the #1 question I had around blenders. It wasn't that could I make a protein shake with it. It wasn't how well it spun my whey powder. It was, will it blend anything? Will the motor lock up? Will I have to buy blenders every year? One year I went through 12 blenders. And it very simply answered that. So his content helped me, which put him front and center, put his brand front and center, and I didn't have to go anywhere else. I felt very comfortable. And I think showing some personality is ultimately what got him on my radar. And I think we can do the same with our brand by just focusing on being a help and having a person there, a personality. I mean, think about what Moz has done with Roger Mosbach. He doesn't say anything, but he means a lot to people. And we can do the very same thing by having some subject matter experts and having some people in place to quote unquote to speak for our brand. Another thing I don't think we focus enough on, we focus so much on the utility of content, and that can be great. But I think we have to focus on, it has to reach a level that it would be interesting enough for people to do something with it. I think of the campaign very, very simply, where BMW was celebrating 100th year, and Mercedes-Benz got on everybody's radar by tweeting out, hey, we relish the competition. So here it is, Mercedes is talking to BMW on their channel, on their Twitter, on the Twitter platform at their handle. I think that's so significant because so many times we think so narrowly about content that we can only produce our content, produce and share content on our platform, and that's so misguided. We have to think about how can we bring more people in to our house, so to speak, and a lot of time that's siphoning off people from the competition, and I think that's how we have to start thinking. Another is use content to promote loyalty. Loyalty ultimately, and I beat this drum consistently, is the goal for your content. And this graphic comes from a study done by Parsley, an audience platform that looked at publishers, was it millions of pages, thousands of blogs, and they found that of those millions of pages, only 11% of the people who consume that content will be considered loyal visitors, as loyal as defined by once per month. And if you think about it, if 11% is the average, and granted it may be much higher and much lower for your brand or for your vertical, for your category, but if loyalty is the goal, shouldn't we be optimizing for that? If the focus is on content helping us move the needle, not moving the needle by itself, the more loyal we can have visitors to our website, the more opportunities we have to get our content in front of them, the more opportunities we have to ensure that they aren't going to the competition, the better off we are. And so we have to focus on optimizing for that. Whatever it is that helps us get those loyal readers. We have to focus on optimizing for that. I think about something that this website's doing. I think this is L'Oreal. One of the major brands has this flair, artistry, and beauty. And the cool thing about it is they're not just focused on their content. They're focused on great content in the entirety of the vertical. So they're sharing competitors' content on their blog. What's the goal? Loyalty. No matter who you shop with, even if you're not you're not a customer, you'll likely come to this blog because they may be talking about the brand that you use, and this puts this brand front and center because it's being shared on their domain. And so if we get beyond thinking about content so narrowly, we have to only share our content. We have to only interact with our content. Because we're not going to grow if we think that narrowly. We're going to have to pull people's eyes from somewhere, specifically in this distracted universe. And what better way of doing it is having an amazing domain that houses sophisticated, enlightening, endearing content for anybody who would want to consume it, regardless of brand loyalty. And I think this is really, really powerful. And so the goal, if the goal is loyalty, what we have to do is focus on what types of content help foster loyalty. And that's going to take some experimenting. It may be, lists, it may be how-to articles, it may be, why post, infographics, whatever it is. And once you find it, continue to optimize for that. But also while you're optimizing, continue to iterate, continue to test and tweak and retest. It's not that it's so sophisticated. I think so many times we make it more sophisticated than it is, but it's not going to stop being iterative. And that's what I say all the time to people, that what works today may not work 2 weeks from now. It's what works right now, but until you know better, continue to do that. And so find what types of content foster loyalty and produce that until you know better. And this is Moz content, a really cool new Moz tool that I really, really like. But the goal here with this graphic is to highlight, to use a tool like BuzzSumo or Moz content to find the most prevalent content across the web in your vertical. And then look what type that it is. Look where it's being shared. Look how people are engaging with it. And look to produce content that bests that. That is an amazing starting point. And that goes back to that. It's not as sophisticated as we make it. But until you know better, focus on doing what you can do now. And so taking a very simple tool like BuzzSumo or Moz content and saying, okay, plug in your vertical or plug in a URL, plug in whatever content you're thinking about producing, whatever content asset that you'd want to produce, and let these tools inform you. And if it's not listicles, don't produce listicles. If the highest ranking content is a blog, produce a blog, but look to produce a better blog. And so this goes back to, we talk about curating content all the time. I think about something, Moz does the UMoz blog, which I run, and I get to work with people at all levels in all types of organizations. And there's nothing to stop other brands from doing the same. This is a blog from Kite Desk, a sales platform that is very similar to Salesforce, but not Salesforce. It works in conjunction with Salesforce. And they're sharing a blog that I wrote for Salesforce. We can do the same things with non-competing companies in similar verticals. We can ask if it's a post that's performing well on their domain, on their blog, ask to share it on our blog. We can tweak it, we can change it. We send a link back to their post. We can highlight great content wherever it's found by asking permission. Would I want you to produce your own content, some original content? Absolutely, but let's stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Content marketing is difficult enough. We don't have to make it more difficult. One of the last things I'll leave you with is, and I know we hear about this a lot, Rand introduced to content, the whole idea of 10x. And basically what 10x is you focused on being consistently better than anything else that you find out there, whether it's another brand, whether it's another product, whether it's another service. And what it begins with is you being passionate about what it is that you do and what it is that you create. And because what that does is it ensures that you're more passionate about sharing it. But it also ensures that the people who consume that content are more passionate believers in your brand as well. And by creating those passionate believers in your product and service, those people become brand advocates, not just customers. And people who believe in who you are far more likely to share that and continue to be buyers of your products and services. So that, again, this is moving from content to audience to community and thinking beyond just moving product or moving services or thinking beyond conversions. Ultimately, what this ensures, and we hear this all the time, that we don't focus enough on customer experience. We don't focus enough on building brand loyalty. We don't focus enough on ensuring that the people who interact with our products and services have the best experience possible. If people are loyal to you, that ensures that it heightens the likelihood that they're less loyal to another brand in your vertical. You know, if I buy Nike or if I buy Adidas, it's far less likely that I'll buy one or the other. It's more likely that I'll buy one. But even if I'm not loyal, if you overserve me, if you continually overdeliver, I likely will have more Nike or more Reebok or more Adidas in my closet than one of the other brands. In the end, it is about taking market share from someone. And what I like to say to brands is, why not you? If another brand in your vertical, or whatever vertical, if loyalty is the goal, and to me it is, why can't we optimize for that? Why can't we focus on that? And ultimately what I say to brands is, if someone's going to be successful, why not you? Why can't it be your brand? The information's out there. We know how to do this. Let's stop overthinking it. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Great messages shared there. Great insight. I think you gave us a lot to think about, a lot to evaluate with our own efforts, and also how we approach working with clients. Fantastic opportunity to listen to that. Going to the questions. I'm gonna start it off with, what's the one problem holding you back from being better at content marketing?
And that's asking me or just in general?
I think just in general. You know, there's a lot of different things that hold everybody back, but you know, what do you see in general that's holding most people back from being better?
I love the question. I always address this when I talk because I steal from people all the time. Of the hundreds of people that I talk to before, during, and after presentations, the number one thing I say holding them back, and they even admit it once I bring it up, is thinking that you need more than you have. Most people have better teams, they have more platforms, more tools than they ever need, but they're focused on what else do I need. And so if we focus on setting a clear goal and saying everybody on board with that goal, until we move the needle, and then it's going to be iterative. We're going to focus on optimizing and focus on tweaking as we go forward. But there's this, and I suffer with it too, there's always this, okay, I need to know more, I need to do more, instead of make a decision, go forward. So it's you know, it sounds like it should be more complicated than it is. I like to say it's simple, it's just not easy.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you follow the practice of, like, you know, people that are hesitant about creating content, like just to get something out there, then measure, evaluate, and then make it better after you've tried at least once?
Yes, I think that's one of the huge disservices a lot of quote unquote us experts are doing to content marketing, is they're having people believe that 10x is this mythical unicorn. And if that's the case, you just never start. But you have to begin where you are, and if all you can do is produce one good piece of content per week, per month, then focus on producing that. But don't stop there. You know, get on social media. You know, meet people in real life. Learn as much as you can about your product, your service, your vertical, and then focus on over-delivering a very, very small group. I can't emphasize that enough. What most people do is they look at what everybody else is doing and they say, okay, I want a piece of that pie. I want those thousands of viewers, those thousands of visits. And even if you had them this early on, you wouldn't be able to serve them to a degree that somebody else couldn't come along and take them from you. So if you have people that become uniquely yours, that move from that, you know, one-to-one connection to audience to community, and I use the example of Moz all the time. It's not that Moz doesn't make mistakes, But you look at what happens with brands like Maz. Maz focuses so much on over serving, even at their own expense, a great expense to the brand, that people are far more forgiving. And I've seen that with my own eyes. And it's like, wow, this is so powerful. But so many people are always about, okay, what can I get from you? What can you give me? And Miles is about, you know what? We just want to be, naturally, organically successful, but we're going to focus on helping people, even if we don't make a penny. And I just think that works. But it doesn't just work for Miles. It works for a lot of brands. I see it all the time, especially with the mom and pop stores or small restaurants. It's that being selfless, and that comes out in your content as well. It comes out in your content that you're being genuine, you're being authentic, that you're being selfless.
I think that speaks well. Those that overserve, or that another way to say it is companies might leave money on the table because they're so willing to give. And what do you think the exchange rate is, like, let's say on a downloadable where it is gated and you're trying to create that lead or that subscriber, but at the same time you're giving something that they want. I think more often than not, sometimes we end up downloading and we're not as impressed as the title led us to believe. You know,
Yeah, and I do. My background is I ran a members only newsletter that was $250 a month. So people had to be convinced that what I was going to deliver and they $250 a year, sorry. And this was a one time. There was no refund. So people had to believe up front that what I was going to deliver this month would be just as good next month and for the entire year. The goal, and I know I talk about the goal all the time, but once people love you and they know that you're always going to look out for them, they're not thinking about, oh, that one time they didn't fill my coffee cup up. When I first started going to Starbucks and, I was a college kid and they didn't fill my cup up, I was like, oh my gosh. But then over time, I realized Starbucks was what it was, right? And
right?
I could get cheap or free refills. But now if I go to a gourmet coffee shop, it's likely a brand that I really, really believe in, that I love. They don't fill my cup up. Even if I pay $6 for it, it's just not that big a deal. I've invested in them, but they've also invested in me because I see their content. I go to their website. I see what they do for the community. And so one of the reasons they come onto my radar is not just their great coffee, it's their great service. And so when I see that you're continually over serving me, I don't worry about this one-time interaction. I don't worry about this one time it wasn't the most positive, it wasn't the most pleasurable. And that's where I disagree with a lot of experts where they say, okay, if your content's not amazing, people won't come back. Yeah, that's problematic at all levels. If it's not amazing at first, they're never going to come back. Nobody ever has amazing content at first. I don't care who you are. It's not going to be amazing at first. It's always going to get better. But if you say, okay, it's not amazing every time, that means you can never have any loyal customers. If you focus on loyalty as the goal for your content, well, that means you're continuing to optimize. You're continuing to focus on the things that lead to your brand being successful. So it's not a one-time thing. So if I come to your store one time and I have a bad experience, if I'm loyal to you, I'm going to come multiple times. You're going to have to screw that up a lot. And it's the same with the blog. If you focus on over-serving me individually, like every time my needs are being met, I'm going to be loyal to you regardless. Even if I don't come to you, I may read the Moz blog. I'm on the blog every day. I may not read every single blog, but I save pieces of content on the Moz blog at least 3 to 5 times a week. So that I'm the most loyal to that blog. I'm more loyal to that blog than I am any other because they overserve me most consistently.
Thank you so much for your time today, Ronnel. That presentation was awesome, and sticking around for some extra questions. Appreciate your patience in us going a little bit over schedule on our time.
No, thank you.
But So happy to have you with us, and I think Alex is ready to